You turn on the news and it's all you hear about. A constant drumbeat of uncertainty. Headlines about trade wars, tariffs, and political threats. Threats from allies who feel more like adversaries. Temptations from rivals who see opportunity in our division. It's exhausting, isn't it? It's a relentless wave of information that leaves you feeling adrift in a sea of complexity. It's easy to feel like our towns, our businesses, our very livelihoods are just pawns in a global game played by giants. A high-stakes chess match where we're not even at the table. A game where the rules are written in faraway capitals, leaving us, the people on the ground, to deal with the consequences. The feeling of uncertainty is real. It's not just a headline, it's a knot in the stomach of a factory worker hearing rumors of layoffs. You see it in the faces of farmers scanning the horizon, wondering if the markets their parents and grandparents sold to will simply vanish overnight. You hear it in the strained voices of small business owners hunched over their calculators, trying to make sense of supply chain costs that seem to change with the wind. It's a heavy weight, a collective anxiety that settles over communities like a fog. But what if I told you that amidst all that noise, a quiet revolution was already underway? What if the most powerful response to these global pressures wasn't a new policy debated in Ottawa or a protest sign waved in Washington? What if it was something closer, something more fundamental happening right here in our own backyards? What if the biggest story wasn't about the threat from the outside, but about the incredible strength we found within? Today, we're not going to focus on the storm. We're going to part the clouds and look at the green shoots growing in its wake. We're going to tell the story of the unsung heroes who, when the world got loud and uncertain, decided to stop waiting for a rescue and learn to build their own shelter. And it all started in a place you might not expect. Not in a government building or a corporate boardroom, but in the rolling hills and sun-soaked fields of Canada's vineyards. This is the story of how a crisis became a catalyst. This is Canada's quiet revolution, the spark from the vineyards. When the trade disputes began and tariffs were slapped on goods going back and forth across the border, many industries felt the immediate shock. It was a time of anxiety and reaction, a moment of national introspection. Farmers gathered in coffee shops, their conversations laced with worry. Factory floors grew quiet with unspoken fears. But then something remarkable happened. A seed of defiance was planted. Provincial governments in places like Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia, listening to the rising chorus of concern from their constituents, made a bold move. It wasn't a tariff or a counter-threat. It was simpler and far more powerful. They began to actively prioritize local products on the shelves of their liquor stores. It was a clear, unambiguous message. If you're going to target our economy, we're going to invest in our own. We will turn this challenge into an opportunity. And the Canadian people responded. Oh, did they respond? They responded not just with their words on social media, but with their wallets at the checkout counter. The result was nothing short of astonishing. In Quebec, local wineries reported a 58% surge in sales within months. In Ontario, the heart of Canadian wine country, the numbers were even more dramatic. Michelle Wassalachan, the president of Ontario Craft Wineries, representing over 100 independent producers, described it as a once-in-a-lifetime moment. She wasn't exaggerating. She noted that sales for her members had climbed an incredible 78% across grocery stores, restaurants, and convenience outlets. Think about that for a moment. Stop and truly consider what that means. This wasn't a small bump, a statistical anomaly. This was an economic explosion. It was a grassroots movement taking hold in real time. For the first time in memory, restaurant menus that had long been dominated by familiar imports from California or Oregon began to proudly feature Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs from the Niagara region, or from the Okanagan Valley. Sommeliers who had once looked abroad for quality were now finding it, rediscovering it in their own country. Carolyn Hurst, the co-owner of Westcott Vineyards, a small family-run operation, spoke of the change with a sense of awe. Her sales doubled in 6 months and were projected to double again before the year was out. She told stories of people driving hours to visit her vineyard, not just to buy wine, but to connect with the land and the people who made it. This wasn't just about selling more bottles. This was a profound cultural shift. A new term began to enter the conversation: whispered at farmers markets and shared online, economic patriotism. But this wasn't a patriotism of flags and slogans. This wasn't about closing ourselves off from the world or building walls. It was about opening our eyes. It was about looking around and recognizing the quality, the passion, and the incredible value that exists right here at home. A 2024 survey from the market research firm Lightspeed put a hard number on this feeling, confirming it wasn't just an anecdote. It found that a staggering 91% of Canadians now make a conscious effort to buy locally grown or made in Canada products. This movement was born out of frustration, certainly, but it was sustained and continues to be sustained by pride. Pride in the quality of the soil, the skill of the vintner, the taste of a product that reflects its unique place in the world. And the most beautiful part of this story is the ripple effect, the hidden architecture of a thriving local economy. When you buy a bottle of local wine, you're not just supporting the winery owner. You're supporting the farmer who walked the rows and pruned the vines. You're supporting the seasonal workers, many of them neighbors, who helped with the harvest. You're supporting the workers in the bottling plant, the local company that prints the labels, the glass manufacturer. You're supporting the trucker who delivered that case of wine to the store. You're supporting the small-town restaurants, the bed and breakfasts, the tour guides who all depend on a vibrant wine tourism industry. It's a powerful, interconnected economic ecosystem, all powered by a single, conscious choice, a choice to invest in our own communities. The story of Canada's wine industry was the spark. It was the first highly visible sign that Canadians were ready to fight back, not with anger, but with purpose. But that fire didn't stay in the vineyards. It began to spread, carried by the winds of change to other, unexpected corners of the nation. The tech mavericks of the prairies. That same spirit of self-reliance isn't just confined to traditional industries. It's taking root in a place you might not expect, the vast, open, windswept prairies of Saskatchewan. Here, a different kind of revolution is happening, one driven not by soil but by silicon, not by tradition but by technology. For decades, the story of farming has been one of bigger machines, bigger farms, and exponentially bigger challenges. Our farmers are some of the most productive in the world, but they face immense pressure. Pressure from fluctuating global commodity prices they can't control. Pressure from rising fuel and fertilizer costs that eat into already thin margins. And perhaps the biggest pressure of all, a chronic, worsening shortage of skilled labor. The modern farm is a high-tech operation, and finding people who can operate GPS-guided combines worth hundreds of thousands of dollars is getting harder every single year. They needed a new solution, a paradigm shift. And that solution didn't come from a multinational corporation in Germany or Japan. It came from their own backyard. Consider the story of Dot Technology Corp., a visionary company that has since become part of Raven Applied Technology. It wasn't founded in a flashy Toronto tech hub or a Montreal industrial park. It was born from the very soil it was designed to work, conceived by people who had mud on their boots and a deep understanding of the problem. The innovators behind it, themselves rooted in agriculture, saw the challenge firsthand. They watched their neighbors and friends struggle to find enough qualified operators to run their complex machinery for 16 hours a day during the critical, time-sensitive windows of seeding and harvest. Their solution was radical, elegant, and brilliant. They created an autonomous power platform. Forget what you think a tractor looks like. Imagine a U-shaped, self-driving chassis, a powerful, intelligent workhorse that can be fitted with any number of farming implements. A seeder in the spring, a sprayer in the summer, a fertilizer spreader in the fall. One operator sitting not in a dusty cab but in a comfortable office with a tablet can command and monitor a fleet of these machines as they work the fields with pinpoint, centimeter-level precision, day or night. This isn't science fiction. This is Canadian innovation, born out of necessity. This technology directly, powerfully addresses the farmer's deepest pain points. It dramatically reduces the need for labor, which is often the biggest bottleneck on a modern farm, allowing a single person to do the work of many. It optimizes the use of every single drop of fuel, every seed, every pellet of fertilizer, saving farmers thousands of dollars and significantly reducing the environmental impact of their operations. But the story is bigger than just one company or one invention. It's about what this kind of local innovation does for a community. Companies like this create high-quality, high-paying jobs in rural areas, reversing the brain drain that has plagued small towns for decades. They attract world-class engineers, programmers, and technicians to places like Regina and Saskatoon. They create partnerships with local colleges and universities, building a pipeline of talent for the future. They give the next generation a powerful reason to stay, to build their lives and careers right where they grew up, connected to the land but working at the cutting edge of technology. And just like with the wine, this made in Canada solution didn't stay in Canada for long. The world took notice. This technology, born on the prairies to solve a Canadian problem, is now being exported and used on massive farms in Australia, the United States, and across Europe. It proved once again that when we focus on solving our own problems with excellence, we often create solutions the entire world needs. It's a powerful reminder that cutting-edge innovation isn't exclusive to Silicon Valley or Shenzhen. It's happening right here, in the heartland, driven by the people who understand the challenges best. From the vineyards of Ontario to the golden wheat fields of Saskatchewan, a pattern was emerging. Canadians were building resilience by looking inward, by trusting their own ingenuity. But this revolution wasn't just about what we grow from the land or what we invent in our labs. It was also about reclaiming something more fundamental, something we had almost lost, the things we build with our own hands, the craftsmen reviving a lost trade. What about the things that last? In an era of fast furniture, cheap imports, and a culture that often feels disposable, a different kind of revolution is happening in quiet workshops and bustling small towns from Quebec to British Columbia. It's the revival of true Canadian craftsmanship. This is a story about quality over quantity, about legacy over fleeting trends, about substance over style. For generations, Canada was home to world-class furniture makers, artisans, and tradespeople. Our grandparents owned tables and chairs that were built not just to be used, but to be passed down. But over time, many of these skills were pushed to the margins by the relentless economic pressures of globalization and mass production. It simply became cheaper to buy a particle board bookshelf from a big box store, knowing it might only last a few years, than to invest in a solid wood piece that could last a lifetime. We traded durability for convenience, and in the process we lost something important. But something is shifting. You can feel it. People are growing tired of the disposable. They are seeking out things with a story, with a soul. They are looking for quality that endures, for an antidote to the culture of the temporary. And they are finding it not in a global catalog, but in their own communities. Take a look at companies like Pioneer Handcraft in British Columbia, a company that has been making classic solid wood furniture for decades, or the countless smaller workshops scattered across the country. From the woodworkers of the eastern townships in Quebec to the artisans on the shores of the Great Lakes. These are not faceless corporations with anonymous call centers. They are often family-run businesses, built on skills passed down from parent to child, from master to apprentice. Their story is one of sheer resilience. They survived the onslaught of cheap imports by refusing, stubbornly and proudly, to compromise on their values. They continue to use locally sourced wood, beautiful Canadian maple, rich oak, and warm cherry, often from sustainably managed forests just a few miles down the road. They employ local artisans who have spent a lifetime honing their skills, people who can read the grain of a piece of wood like a book. When you buy a table from one of these craftsmen, you're not just buying a piece of furniture. You're buying a piece of the local forest. You're investing in a tradition that is centuries old. You're supporting a philosophy that says some things are worth doing right, no matter how long it takes. This movement is fundamentally reshaping how we think about value. For a long time, value simply meant the lowest possible price on the tag. But now, a more sophisticated, more mature understanding is taking hold. True value isn't just about the initial cost, it's about durability. How long will this product last? Will my grandchildren be able to use it? It's about the supply chain. Where did the materials come from? What was the environmental cost of shipping it halfway across the world? And most importantly, it's about the human impact. Who am I supporting with this purchase? Am I sending my money to a distant, anonymous corporation, or am I helping my neighbor, the local woodworker, pay their mortgage and keep a valuable, traditional skill alive in my community? This is the very core of the quiet revolution. It's a conscious choice to invest in the tangible fabric of our own communities. It's the deep understanding that a strong local economy is the only true foundation for a strong national economy. It's happening with our wine, our technology, and our furniture. It's a powerful current running just beneath the surface of the noisy, distracting headlines. The hidden giants of our food supply. This revolution doesn't stop at the things we drink or the tools we use. It's fundamentally changing what we eat and who we trust to produce it. For decades, the story of food has been one of consolidation. Fewer, bigger companies controlling more and more of what ends up on our plates. Supermarket shelves are filled with brands that look different, but are often owned by the same handful of global conglomerates. This system is efficient, but it's also fragile. We saw that during the pandemic when a disruption in one part of the world could lead to empty shelves right here at home, and we lost a connection to our food and to the people who produce it. But here too, a powerful counter movement is growing. It's a renaissance of the local artisan. Think about it. The rise of the craft brewery, bringing unique local flavors back to towns that had been dominated by mass-produced lagers for half a century. The explosion of artisanal cheesemakers, using local milk to create products that can compete with the best from France or Italy. The baker who gets up at 3 a.m. to make sourdough bread with flour from a nearby mill. These aren't just businesses. They are acts of community building. Let's take the example of the artisanal cheese industry in Quebec. For years, Canadian cheese meant one thing: mass-produced cheddar. But a new generation of cheesemakers, inspired by tradition but driven by innovation, began to change that. They worked with local dairy farmers to get the highest quality milk. They revived old-world techniques and invented new ones. The result has been a Cambrian explosion of flavor and quality. Today, you can walk into a cheese shop in Montreal or a farmer's market in a small village and find hundreds of world-class Canadian cheeses. This movement is creating a virtuous cycle. The cheesemaker provides a high-value market for the local dairy farmer. The farmer, in turn, can invest in more sustainable practices. The success of these products creates tourism, drawing people to the regions to taste and experience them firsthand. And it gives consumers something priceless: trust. When you buy cheese from a local producer, you often know the name of the person who made it. You might even know the name of the farm where the cows graze. That's a level of transparency and connection that a global supply chain can never offer. This is happening everywhere, from the craft distilleries of the Maritimes to the organic vegetable farms of British Columbia. Canadians are rebuilding their local food systems, one delicious, high-quality product at a time. They are reclaiming their food sovereignty. And in doing so, they are making our entire country stronger, more resilient, and a lot more flavorful. The blueprint for a stronger nation. So what do a bottle of wine from Niagara, an autonomous tractor from Saskatchewan, a handcrafted table from Quebec, and a piece of artisanal cheese all have in common? They are all pieces of the same beautiful, intricate puzzle. They are proof of a quiet revolution. They are tangible, undeniable evidence that when faced with external pressure, Canadians don't just endure. We innovate, we adapt, we build. For too long, the dominant narrative has been that we are a small nation, dependent on the whims of larger countries, that our economic fate is inextricably tied to decisions made in Washington or Beijing. But these stories tell a different truth, a more hopeful truth. They show that our greatest economic asset isn't a trade deal or a natural resource. It's the ingenuity, the grit, and the resilience of our own people. This brings us back to our central thesis, the heart of this entire story. While global superpowers play their political games, a quiet revolution is taking root across Canada. This is not a story of a nation under threat, but of a people rediscovering their power, proving that true economic sovereignty is won not through treaties signed in secret, but through millions of conscious choices made every day in our own communities. This isn't just a fleeting trend or a hashtag that will be forgotten next year. It represents a fundamental, long-term shift in our values. It's a deliberate move towards a more resilient supply chain where we are less vulnerable to international disruptions, whether they come from a trade war or a pandemic. It's a powerful move towards greater transparency, where we demand to know where our products come from and who made them and under what conditions. And most importantly, it's a heartfelt move towards a stronger sense of community, where our economic choices become a direct investment in the health and prosperity of the places we call home. The stories we've shared today are just the beginning. They are just a few bright sparks in a growing fire. The story of our winemakers is just the beginning. In our next video, we're going to uncover the surprising manufacturing sector in the heart of the prairies that's quietly creating jobs and challenging international rivals. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that incredible story. These are just a few examples I've found. But the real story, the most important story, is happening in your communities. What local businesses or producers in your own community have become heroes in their own right? Who is the baker, the farmer, the brewer, the innovator in your town that is making a difference? Share their stories in the comments below. Let's celebrate them together. Thank you for watching. Let's continue to build a stronger, more resilient, and more prosperous Canada, one local choice at a time.